Hello, and welcome to our Fireside chat here at the Timothy Hill Children's Ranch. Fern is, of course, here by my side, and we're not in front of the fireplace today. We're in front of 3 candles right here. So this is our fire on this particular occasion. I have invited our daughter-in-law, Emily Hill, to come and join us today for this discussion because what has happened in our family over the last few days causes us to want to be able to talk to a professional who can help us to work through some of the pain that we've been going through. And you may or you may not have heard, but our middle son, Thomas Hill, who was 53 years of age, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer about 4 months ago. And he died this past weekend. And so we're in preparation for a funeral, and we're going to have a celebration of his life at the funeral home here in Riverhead later this week. But it's a difficult thing that we're going through, as many families go through something similar throughout the country. But we thought it might be good for those of you who are in the audience to think with us about grief and how we work through grief, how we might help people who are working through grief. And there was a book many years ago called The Many Faces of Grief. And so people grieve in many different ways. And many times all of the emotions of a person would have might be felt as they work through that. And I certainly have had a lot of emotions over the last couple of days. And I'm just so thankful for our daughter-in-law that we love so much. We never had a girl in our family. They all turned out to be boys. But if we had a daughter, we'd want her to be Emily, because she's a daughter to us. And Emily, thank you for coming and being here with us. And so we're just going to talk to each other. And I want to tell you that people who are going through what we're going through this week need help. And this is the second child that we have had to die. And I've often said that parents should never have to go through the experience of losing a child in death. But we've gone through that experience now. Timothy died 48 years ago, and now we have our son Thomas, who has also passed away due to this virus. And it was, this cancer. And it's a different experience, because in Timothy's death there was an accident and he died quickly. And we had no ability to kind of hug him and tell him we loved him and help him prepare for it. And in Thomas's case, we've had wonderful months together to share our love with him. And it's painful both ways. But in both situations, there's also a spirit of thankfulness that God is right here with us. What would you say to help us get through this? And if you can help us, you could probably help a lot of other people as well.
I would just ask you to maybe help people describe for me what it's like, the differences in coping. You described some of the differences of when a death is sudden.
Yes.
And not being able to love on your child and to comfort your child.
Yes.
And you had that time with Thomas.
Yes.
It's 2 very different circumstances. You've had 48 years of walking every day, missing one child. And
yes.
You know what that's like. And then to face missing another one for the rest of your life. And I certainly have heard, and I think many people would agree, that the greatest loss a person could face is that of your child.
Yes.
And so many different families go through it. and it's a community that no one wants to be a part of.
Yes.
How would you maybe discuss what you're coping, how you dealt with it, maybe the similarities, but also the differences?
The love of friends is certainly one thing that's been helpful to me. The love of family is certainly very important, and even that extended family that we all have with our friends. And Fern, I want to say that when Timothy had his accident, your strength rubbed off on me. And you were much stronger than I was.
The thing that helped me was immediately when I heard the first words was Isaiah 26:3. God will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are stayed on him. And for those who believe in the risen Lord, as Helen Steiner Rice says, death is for them just a reward. It's really a graduation to glory. And when we understand that, the sting of death isn't so great. God takes it away. With Timothy, in the accident when a truck hit him, I knew that he would never want to be lingering in just a vegetable situation, and that death was much fairer to him than just lingering. And with Thomas, he made the statement himself that God knew what it would take to bring him to Jesus, because he had been out of a walk with Jesus. And I'm not saying that God brought cancer upon him, because Satan does a lot of things, just as in the story of Job. But God uses that, and Thomas recognized that, and his actual statement was that the suffering was a small price to pay for the reward that God had given him. Mm-hmm. And that was very comforting to me to hear him say that. And then the fact that he wrote his last words and gave them to James just before his death, and James posted them on the internet after his death. But here's what he said, and these were Thomas's words: I enjoyed my life on earth. It was fulfilled. Life is ups and downs, but I had a lot of fun activities. And he did. He was fun-loving. Toward the end of my life, I made peace with my family and friends. I've come to peace with what's happening, and I'm happy. Even though I'm in pain every day, I'm still appreciative to God for the blessings I do have and the memories that I share. And to me, that was very helpful. So when we can talk to our loved ones and get that kind of response, that's a tremendous comfort and strength.
Emily, as I look back at Timothy's accident, I was very angry. Mm. It was a shock, just like that. Mm-hmm. And I was angry at Timothy for not being careful, riding his bicycle to school. And it was a very dangerous intersection in our subdivision. And then I was angry at God for allowing this to happen. And I think that there are many people who are going through similar types of grief, can get angry at God. Of course, in so much of our culture today, God is blamed for everything. Mm-hmm. But I saw Fern have such strength in her own life, and she had such a close walk with God. She started writing Graduation to Glory even at the hospital. In the emergency room, she started making notes, and 2 years later, that book was published. But I didn't have that to work on at that point in my life. I was angry at myself that I had not taught Timothy better to be careful, and when he was riding his bike. And so I felt some guilt as well. And I think that just shares that there are a lot of emotions that come to a person's life when they have a child to die or have a loved one to die. It's not just a child, but many people have similar emotions if it's a husband or a wife or a mother or a father or a grandparent or whoever it might be that is leaving this world. And then I recognize also with Timothy, I had months to be able to share my love with him and to feel his love for me. So that was very helpful to me, so that I did not experience the anger and the shock.
You mean with Thomas?
With Thomas, what did I say?
You said Timothy.
I meant Thomas, yeah. I did not share the anger and the shock with Thomas that I had felt when Timothy's had his accident. And to me, it was a matter of just being at peace, because I felt that Thomas had come to the end of life as a triumphant person who was so courageous and who knew what was ahead. And he prepared his heart and his mind and us as a family for that transition to happen in his life.
I felt that Timothy had done the same thing, even though it was sudden. I felt that his walk with God was so close that he had prepared, and we had such wonderful conversations and such closeness that I felt it was just like a great leap into the arms of God, and that he was there, and that was better than being with me. It was like a friend of mine said to me, "How can you bear with it?" And I said to her, she was away from her son at that time, I said, "Where's your son?" And she said, "He's off at camp." And I said, "Well, how do you feel about that?" And she said, "Oh, I miss him terribly." I said, "Well, are you glad he's at camp?" And she said, yes, she was glad for the experience. And I said, "So I'm glad for my son's experience to be with the Father in heaven. I miss him, yes, but I'm so happy that he's having a better experience." And just people that share memories that they have of the loved one is so helpful too. And to ask one of the visitors with me at that time just pulled me aside and said, "Tell me about Timothy." And that was so helpful to be able to just talk about Timothy. Sometimes people are afraid to say anything because they're afraid, oh, it's too bad to bring up the life of the death of that person, but it's not. People have those memories that they want to share. And one of the things, even yesterday, that a friend of Thomas's came by, and she and her sister had been at odds with each other for years and hadn't spoken. And Thomas knew that, and he had called her, though they hadn't talked in some time. And he said, "Are you still at odds with your sister?" And she said, "Yes." And he said, "Make it right now." But his doctor had been so sweet and caring to him, and he said, "Thomas, any bitterness, any hatred, any anger, any unforgiveness, lay it at the feet of Jesus now. Get rid of it."
You know, what I heard from both of you is, Mom, one of the ways that you coped was with each of them is being able to visualize an environment that is so different from here.
Yes.
And so the picture that you made in your mind and reliance on the words of Scripture, you were able to refocus some energy, maybe some emotional energy, into refocus emotional energy, but into a place that was more peaceful.
Absolutely.
And another outlet for you was in your writing.
Yes.
And, every personality and every person deals with grief so differently.
Yes, they do.
And Pop, for you, thank you for sharing that you were really angry and that you were angry at Timothy, it's hard to be able to say that you're angry
Yes.
at the person who is now gone.
Yes.
But it takes a lot of transparency and a lot of the ability to really kind of decipher through all those emotions, to sort out all of the anger that probably
Yes.
came crashing down at the time.
Yes.
And so in many ways, you felt it. You felt
Yes.
the pain, and your energy was focused on feeling the pain.
Yes.
And so you both you handled it differently.
Yes, we did.
How did, and this happens, I think, so much in couples, and we forget that when there is grief, that couples sometimes suffer together but separately.
Yes.
And if couples are not in sync with each other in their own
Right.
suffering, there can be more pain added.
Yes.
How would you say that the two of you were able to support each other after Timothy's death? Support each other, recognizing the separate ways. Instead of making one person right and one person wrong, that you join together.
Yes.
And then how does your coping together as well as your suffering together look different now in the face of Thomas's death?
Well, I would say that when Timothy's accident happened years ago, Fern and I were so in love with each other and with our children that we just pulled together, and we were there for each other.
Many times in death, couples separate.
Yes.
They can't make it.
There's a high percentage of couples who lose a child who end up in divorce because of the very things that you're sharing with us. But that was never an option for us. We used to joke and say, if one of us decides to have a divorce and divorce the other person, whoever starts this whole procedure, they have to take the children with them. So we coped with a lot of it with humor.
With humor.
And it's been one of my coping mechanisms for a long time. But I do think that because both of us had such a strong faith in God, and we depended upon Him, and we did a lot of praying together, and we worshiped together.
We sang together a lot, and
Yes.
that's very helpful. We sing
And we had a wonderful community of faith surrounding us that was there to encourage us and pray for us. And all of that is so helpful. And my heart goes out to people who do not have faith and who do not have a faith community surrounding them as a large family, to be there, to feel their hurt, to pray with them, to encourage them, to laugh with them, to eat together, and all the things that families do. But we had all of that, and I think that's helped keep us together. And also, Timothy had a big dream, and so Fern and I, with a lot of prayer, worked on seeing if that dream could become a reality. And so that was one of the things that I think helped us to focus on God and upon each other's needs during that period of time.
For those who may be viewing, 1 Corinthians 15 is very helpful in talking about the transition of death, that for those who follow God, when we leave this world, we're given a new body. It's like if you plant a seed of corn in the ground, when it comes up a stalk. It doesn't come up just like that seed, but it produces much more. And the same is true with us in death. We plant that old carcass, lay it aside, but God gives us a new body, a resurrected body that's much, much better, new, and no pain and no sorrow. And when we know that, it was painful for me to watch Thomas suffer, and it was painful for me to watch him suffer without walking with God. And it was so peaceful to me to know that he was turning to God, and that he was peaceful in leaving this world. So that gives me a great deal of peace and comfort.
Thank you, Emily, for being with us on this wonderful theme of our humanity and the fact that that we can love so deeply, that we hurt so much when a loved one leaves us. And we're going to sign this off at the present time, and we're going to try to continue this discussion next week. But we thank you in the audience for joining us for this time of reflection. And Fern and I would ask that you continue to remember us in your prayers as we continue to work through this along with all of our family and friends and loved ones. So God bless you and have a great day.